Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today we're going to be talking about ghosts as I am joined by Tina Irwin. She is a ghost helper, and her mission is to show the living how to help the dead and help people learn how to help any ghost or spirit they encounter. So we're going to be talking to her about everything that she does and how she helps the living help the dead. So Tina, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
I'm like a lot of people. I discovered as a little kid that I could see things that I didn't realize other people couldn't see, which is not unusual. Not everybody can see, a ghost or can experience something, but that started as a child. And then you don't think about it much. And as I got older, I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy in the 70s. And my first day at my first duty station, I met my husband. And then after that, all kinds of things began to happen. And what I thought was a little bit of psychic ability sort of exploded. And, you're a naval officer. You're not you're not supposed to have these experiences. It's not something that other people even consider. But what I discovered along the way is that it doesn't matter whether you're a naval officer or you're a naval enlisted personnel. Everybody's psychic. You can't operate a vessel or a car without being psychic. And then as I began to see and feel more, other people started talking to me in whispered, hushed tones. We were stationed in Italy in what is called the Armed Forces Southern Europe building, which was a NATO building. And the building was constructed by the Nazis. And when this happened, when we had duty in that building, you could hear someone being tortured in that building. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And it's one of these things where you're not sure you can tell anybody. But I mentioned it to a couple other of my fellow lieutenants, and they said, "Oh, I hate being in that place at night. You can hear men screaming and suffering. It's horrible. I don't ever want to make rounds. I always take a chief petty officer with me. It's so scary." I thought, okay, all right, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. But to make matters even crazier, I was having dinner with a lieutenant at her little villa in the country. My husband had the duty, so we're just hanging out. And I look in the corner, and there's a ghost standing there. He's a guy from the 1940s with a fedora hat, and he has a trench coat on. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I tell her there's a ghost in the corner? Do I not say anything? Do I pretend he's not there? What do I do? What do I do? And so I mentioned it to her. I said, do you realize that you have a ghost in the corner? Am I imagining this? And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled you can see him. His name is Theo, and he's been with me all my life. And I thought, okay, I've got a really strange life. So that's kind of how it started, with
Oh,
crazy things like that happening.
okay, we'll explain to listeners what a ghost helper is, because I've never heard of that until I met you.
A ghost helper is someone who doesn't hunt ghosts. A ghost helper is someone who understands that if you either don't know you're dead or don't know what to do now that you are dead, there's nobody to ask. There's no signposts. There's no guidebook that says, after you die, you're supposed to do these things. And if you're a child and you died, you have no idea what to do. And if you're a baby, you're completely baffled by what's supposed to happen next. And over time, I developed something called the crossing over prayer, because at first I didn't know how you helped a ghost either. I had no idea what to do. And so I did research. We lived in a house in Charleston, South Carolina that was so profoundly haunted. And then I mentioned things to my neighbors, and they all started telling me their stories. And every one of them said, "We know we have a ghost, but we don't know what to do about it." So I contacted the Duke University School of Parapsychology, and they said, "Oh, we just study the paranormal. We don't know what to do with a ghost either." And I decided that it shouldn't be that hard. And through a series of events, I ended up writing the Crossing Over Prayer. And this is a prayer that any person can say, psychic or not, doesn't matter. And they can say this prayer. And in this prayer, it asks for assistance in crossing this soul over. You don't have to know the soul. You don't have to know how they died or why they didn't cross over. That's not relevant. All that matters is that this person gets to go to the higher realms, what I call the heaven world. And when the prayer is said, it's like this doorway of amazing light opens up for this person. There is so much love and compassion. There is healing and hope, and people that you know and who love you, and they're there for you. Pets are there for you who've died before you. When you help that soul cross over and you're inviting an angel to assist you, you are giving that person the compassion that you would want for yourself. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. I had a radio host, I did a show in Belgium, and he took the crossing over prayer and walked battlefields and graveyards of the war dead. And every now and then he'd hear these little thank yous whispered in his ear. He said it was so moving, it changed him. That's what a ghost helper it is. We help the dead in a quiet, private, humble, compassionate way.
Well, this question is a two-part question. If a person wanted to remove a ghost, how would they do that? And how do you help people who are terrified of ghosts?
I was terrified. I mean, I don't think there's I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, "Oh my gosh, there was a ghost and I was so afraid." What I would offer you is, if you ask for an angel to stand beside you, you imagine that you've got these two big archangels and you can ask them. Angels earn positive karma by helping living people. So when you ask these angels to be there for you, and then you're reading this prayer, and I actually have something called crossing over prayer cards, and they're available on ghosthelpers.com. And what these cards do, that's just the prayer. Or you can go to ghosthelpers.com and the prayer's on the website. You can just read it several times. And even though you're fearful, when you stand up a little straighter and you find your courage and you say these beautiful words, something inside you grows and your fear starts to melt away. And it's a very moving and powerful experience.
Well, how can you help a person who is dealing with a haunted house with a ghost that maybe they're not familiar with?
Well, that happened to me. And my house was so profoundly haunted, and it was 18 months old. It was basically a brand new house. No one, as far as I knew, had ever lived on that property before except the previous owner, and he just bought it. He was an Air Force officer. And we had banging on the walls. Our ghost was a thief. He took all kinds of things. We hear him running down the hall, banging and banging on the walls and making all this crazy noise. And I mean, I got tired of being terrified. But in that time, I didn't know how to cross over a ghost. So if I had had access to the crossing over prayer, I didn't, the internet wasn't developed in, the late 70s, the early 80s. So the best you could do is, you didn't really know. But if someone has a haunted house and they don't know what to do, then I would recommend that they look at this book, Psychic Children, Psychic People. In chapters 39 through 41, it gives you step-by-step instructions how to help your house, how to change the energy in your house, how to clear your house, and how to cross over the dead, how to cross over ghosts. Perhaps someone committed suicide in the house. Someone could have been murdered in the house in a different stack of time, a different time, and what would be like a different place. And if you don't have any books or anything, but you have access to the website, just sit down in a quiet room and start saying this crossing over prayer over and over and over. If you're really afraid, you again ask for those archangels to stand beside you to protect you and help you with your courage. And in the prayer, it asks for angels to cross over the person or persons who are in that house. And there's another little point. Those ghosts could be from another stack of time. If you're on the East Coast or, the Gulf Coast, well, those properties go back, centuries. New England, the southern United States, the Gulf Coast of the United States, you have everybody from pirates to slaves to, Civil War battles, Revolutionary War battles, War of 1812. So if you have a ghost from that period of time, that ghost can't see you. That ghost doesn't even know they're influencing you, but you can feel it. So it's the weirdest thing because you and the ghost are occupying the same space at the same time, separated by stacks of time, like looking at layers of sediment in the earth or on a rock wall. You're looking at different stacks of time on a rock wall. It's pretty amazing. And when you're doing that, what you're seeing is that ghost may not see you, feel you, or know you're there. But when you say this prayer, it transcends those stacks of time. That's why sage doesn't work. All the crazy things people say, burn a candle, walk in a circle 3 times, all that stuff's never going to work. Ask the ghost to leave, and the ghost is going to go, lady, where do you want me to go? Really? What do you want me to do? So when you bypass all that and you don't need a medium, anyone can do this. It offers people power. You shouldn't have to, pay a medium to help you with a loved one or a ghost or somebody you don't know. So when you're using this prayer connects you to the divine and it connects the ghost to the divine. That's going to make a huge difference. And it will change you in some really positive ways.
Well, in your opinion, explain what it's like to die and what happens when we die.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
when the life force charge inside a human being is over, and this is true for an animal as well, all the body systems start to shut down. It's like someone turning off the lights in a building, the kidney stop and the liver stops and the spleen stops and the lungs stop, and then the heart is one of the last things to stop. Well, you are connected as a soul to a mortal frame by something called the silver cord. And it's this thin silvery cord that attaches inside of your heart. When you die, that cord connects the soul and the mortal frame. Again, it resides in your heart. When you die, that cord is severed. And what is left are all of your memories from all of your lifetime that go with you. That is the foundation and the basis of your Akashic records. They are the records of all you've ever seen, experienced, the people you've met, the places you've been, the traumas and the joys you have experienced. All of those are wrapped up and are part and parcel of a soul. Then that soul leaves the third dimension, which is the physical dimension, and transitions into what is called the fourth dimension. And we know this is true because of the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Well, that's the fourth dimension. And as you read that Psalm, if you think about it, that tells you what to do. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Okay, what does that mean? It means that the fourth dimension is a kind of an unnerving place. There's no one to talk to. It's mostly dark, and you're not sure what to do. You don't have a mortal frame. And if someone's thinking about you, you can travel with the speed of thought, and you're right with that person. You're right there. And once you're right there, you can hear their thoughts. You can stand beside them. When my mother died in hospice in North Carolina and I was in San Diego, I could feel her standing in my kitchen. It's like she came to see how I was doing and say goodbye. And then she was only there what seemed in mortal time, a few moments, and then she was gone, and she visited each of her children. And then she crossed over. Now, when some people die, they see this beautiful light of transition. You remember the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore and Tony Goldwyn? All of those people in that story were representing something that's actually quite accurate. When Patrick Swayze died in that film, the light came for him, but he was so traumatized by his death, he didn't go into the light. And it didn't come back till the end of the film. When the light comes for you, no matter how you died or what happened to you, move into the light right away. Because when you do that, something wonderful and miraculous can then happen. You are welcomed home. Now, if you don't move into that light, and the movie wasn't too realistic, following people around and trying to get something done, most people can't hear you. They don't know you're there. And you just have this life of frustration because in that fourth dimension, there's no time. You don't know that maybe 100 years has passed, or 10 years, or 20 minutes. There's no time. The only reason you have time in this dimension is because you can't have time and space without gravity. It grounds you into this dimension so that you can have experiences that enable you to know and learn from life. Once all of the heat has left the body, the silver cord is cut, the soul exits the body because we live forever. It's what Christ meant when he talked about life everlasting. It's a beautiful concept. We live forever. and we can dwell in the house of the Lord forever when we move into that light. Religions are oddly silent on the steps to take when death overtakes you. And it doesn't have to be hard or scary. Most people are afraid it's going to hurt. But a lot of times you simply go into a coma and then you gently exit the body. It's a simple process. It isn't necessary to be afraid of death. We're all going to experience it. When we look at it with grace and love, it's simply another life experience. Once you're in that fourth dimension and you see the light and you move into it, when you cross into the light, and again, the 23rd Psalm says, He restoreth my soul. That's exactly what happens. Suppose you had post-traumatic stress disorder. Suppose you were horribly beaten as a child. I've crossed over people who had horrific lives in all different time eras, soldiers and anyway, all kinds of people who have suffered terribly. Once they move into that light, it's as if this light penetrates all of these elements of your very soul to a dynamic and fabulous level. And you feel healed, you feel whole, you feel alive again in a different way. And there are always people you've known or beings to meet you. If you want to understand, why did I have to suffer in this last life? There are counselors of divine wisdom who will sit down with you. You can ask them any question you want, but they're not judging you. They're helping you to understand the life you just lived, how the decisions you made affected yourself in the future and others. It makes a very big difference in how you put these things together. And then if you had an arduous life, there are places they take you where you have rest, and then you can study and learn and heal. It is an amazing place. Many people see the light, but they don't cross over because they tell me that God couldn't love them because they were born in sin and they died in sin. And I would offer that there is no need for guilt. No one who has ever walked the earth, except Christ, perhaps, has led a perfect life. We come for experiences. And so many times our experiences are based on mistakes we've made. There's so much compassion in helping us understand these things. But let's make this more interesting. Suppose you have killed someone in another life. I mean, in this past life, you were a murderer. I do cross over murderers because when you don't, they come back again and they're even more hideous and vicious in the next life than they were in this life. When you cross over a murderer, all the pieces of their soul that was shaved off in previous lives, where they lost all of their humanity, all of their compassion, can be restored. But it doesn't mean that the karma that they created by their actions is erased. It doesn't work that way. That person still has to work through the karma that they created by the previous deeds that they have done if they were really terrible. By the same token, if you were a person who you were a good person and you sacrificed and you helped a lot of people and you worked as hard as you could every day and you loved as much as you could, then possibly in the next life, especially if you're crossing over, things will be perhaps happier. You'll have more opportunities to do more things. So it's a kind of a treatise on what happens at death, and then even after the initial death over the long term. It's a great opportunity for healing and learning and growing.
Well, tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
I just finished writing the Psychic Children, Psychic People book, which explains, what do you do with psychic ability and how do you understand what's happening to you? And so right now I'm trying to get the word out about that book. I'm also working on a book about healing from an unusual perspective. So that's going to be another at least 2 years in progress to get that out. My main goal is to inform people that it isn't necessary to be afraid of death. And that when you're helping another soul, even if you don't know them, if you came across someone in an accident and you went there to help them, imagine that the person in that car that's getting help is so grateful someone stopped. So grateful. Well, this is a little bit more elevated. So my goal is to educate and to help other people not be afraid of death, not be afraid of ghosts, and to offer up their heart of compassion, not the energy of fear. So that's my frame of reference at this point.
Well, so listeners can keep up with everything that you're up to, throw out your contact info.
Ghosthelpers.com is my website. I have an app on Amazon, which is the Ghost Helpers app. It's free. Every time I do a podcast or somebody writes me and they want me to answer some questions, I can put it on that. And it enables people to hear a lot of different things about the paranormal and the supernatural from a scientific basis. And all my books are available on Amazon. I've written 9, from anything from grief and ghost story books to karma and frequency books. And of course, the Crossing Over Prayer book, which is 88 prayers that help the living and the dead. I mean, if your neighbor commits suicide and you say you'll pray for him, what are you saying? This book has a prayer specifically for those unusual circumstances. So again, ghosthelpers.com, contact@ghosthelpers.com reaches me. And I want to thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on and close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
I guess my final thought is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's a law of physics. So when someone tells you there's no such thing as a ghost, and you know that you felt something, don't deny what you feel. Believe in yourself. And it doesn't matter if somebody else believes you. It doesn't matter. You know what is real for you. Cross them over. And then that person, when they get to the heaven world, very frequently sends prayers of love and gratitude to the living person who helped them, because that is karmic balance. And it's a very beautiful thing. So if you're listening to this, let's thank our host for the opportunity to share some, maybe it's a little bit strange information, but it's meant in the spirit of helping the living and the dead. And again, thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, ghosthelpers.com. Please be sure to check out everything that Tina's up to. Pick up those books. Check out her app. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible, especially friends that are interested in paranormal. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform and visit www.curveball337.com for more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Tina, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.